Hi there and welcome to this brief tutorial on the use of the Hoverscape data analysis portal. The portal has been designed to be fairly straightforward to use, so it shouldn't take us too long to move through, first of all, the navigation of a 3D model, the viewing of original images, and the use of the tools that you're provided to annotate, measure, and explore those models. So just to kick us off, let's have a bit of a chat about the windows you see. This is what you'll see when you first log into the portal. On the left-hand side, we have the 3D model viewer window, and on the right-hand side, we have a window for viewing the original images. At the moment, we can't see anything there yet because we haven't selected any of the original images to view. We'll get to that in a moment. So moving over to the 3D model on the left-hand side, we navigate by clicking and dragging with the left mouse button, and that rotates us around the model and orbits us. It's worth bearing in mind that the model will rotate around the point at which you click. So if I was to click up here, you'll see that the model is rotating around the point in the top right of the window there, whereas if I click at a certain point on the model itself, that's where the pivot point will be. So just bear that in mind if in case you're trying to navigate and you find that the image rotates in an unexpected way. It may be because you clicked on a part of the background when you went to orbit the model. So left click is for orbit. Now if you want to move around the model, you can shift and then left click, and that slides the model around in a sort of a panning fashion. And so with a combination of those two moves, you can pretty much get wherever you need to in terms of navigation. The last control is just the mouse wheel, which allows you to zoom in and out. It's pretty straightforward. So by way of a bit of an example, let's say we wanted to track up the base of this canal and observe the base of the canal from the start to the finish. We might start by zooming in on the start of the canal. The zoom will work, it'll zoom wherever the mouse icon is. So if we move the mouse up here away from the model, that's where we're going to end up zooming in. So put the mouse where you want to zoom into, and you'll find that you can zoom right in on that part of the model and again rotate around. So now we can rotate it until we have a sort of an angle that we want, and then use the shift button and we can drag our way along the base of the canal if we wanted to. We could follow that the whole way up, and maybe occasionally rotating slightly to stay on track. We can just zoom out, maybe we've got too much of the canal in view there. And so by using those combinations, you can pretty easily navigate your way around. Oftentimes the quickest way to get around is to zoom right out and then move the mouse to where you want to go and then zoom right in. You figure out a bit of a workflow with navigation just by playing with it. If ever you get lost, which can happen if you, for example, accidentally click far off in the background and then rotate, it's quite easy to lose yourself. Just press the home button up here and that'll take you right back to the default view. And that's the basics of navigation, really. There's not much more to it than that. And you'll find that as you navigate these models, you can actually zoom in to achieve a fairly high level of detail on some of these areas. Now, let's say you wanted to view the original image that created this part of the model. You just right-click on the area that you wish to view, and the original image will appear over here on the right-hand side. The original image might be what you need to see a little bit more detail. You may just want something that can be saved. You can always right-click and then save that image if you want to export it for to show a colleague or whatever the case might be. Maybe the yellow crosshair that appears here, it represents the point that you clicked on the model, so it just helps you with orientation. Let's say you wanted to look at a very specific part of the model, say here. The crosshair represents the point on the model that you actually clicked, which is quite useful for orienting yourself in regards to the model versus the images. But if the crosshair is in the way, you can always turn it off by clicking the target toggle up here, if you don't need to see that yellow crosshair in the view of the original image viewer. Now, in terms of these photos here, the original images, any given point on the model will be represented in more than one image. So to see all the images rather than just the most likely or the best possible image that the system decides, you can always bring up the thumbnail strip at the bottom here and you can look through all the different angles that captured that point. For example, you may want to look at the top-down view of that same point because you need to try and get access to a different angle, and you can easily switch back and forwards between the different views to see whatever it is you might need to see or to give you some context. Okay, moving on from the original image viewing, we can always change the size of the windows here, so we'll just put the images away for the moment and make the model itself a bit bigger. Now, we'll go through some of the tools and the options at the top of the model here. The first here, this first drop down is pretty straightforward. That is just a way to select the asset. If you have a number of assets that have been inspected, you can choose the one that you want through that. And then if you have captured that asset on a number of different dates over time, you can choose the date that you want by selecting the date drop down. The next series of tools are more functional in terms of how you interact with this particular model. The first option here is the option to create an annotation. So let's say we wanted to create an annotation for this large crack here in the wall of the canal. Just click on the annotation button and then we can drop an annotation right there on the wall of the canal. We could name it. Let's just call it crack 001 for now. And you get some details there. You can add a description. You can put more detail here. Images gives you access to all the images that contributed to that section of the model, as we saw in the original image viewer. They're collated there for you. Defect allows you to classify the defect. You can provide a classification here that's the default options, but you can also add your own new classification. So we could call that erosion, for example. And that'll stay within the database. That'll be written to the database for you to use later on as well. Severity is another option that we've provided, but we also have given you a couple of custom fields that you can use for your own, to incorporate your own workflows. Add in some notes and you've pretty much created a annotation, or what we call a defect card. These four options here, rectify, history, files and share, are coming soon. They don't contain anything that you can use at the moment, but we're working on them at the moment in development. Once you've created your annotation, you just click the save icon. You'll get a notification in the top right here that the annotation was saved. So when you close the annotation and zoom out, you can see that our little marker remains on that part of the wall. Annotations are visible on this slide out drawer here on the left. We can see here we've got crack 001, which is our annotation. But if you don't want to see those yellow markers, you can always turn them off by unchecking that checkbox. And let's say you have since navigated to another area of the model that you've been working on and you wish to return to that annotation. Just click the I symbol there and it will jump back across to that particular annotation. If you wish to delete the annotation, you can click the rubbish bin icon as well. Also visible up here on the left are measurements. Measurements appear as an annotation card, so let's look at how to take a measurement now. Let's say we wanted to use the ruler to measure a straight line from the base of the canal up to the edge of the canal. We've captured that measurement there, and you'll see that an annotation card pops up as a function of that measurement. Now that measurement gives us a few pieces of information. We have the start and end points in lat and longitude. We have the surface distance, which is 3.9292 meters there, and that is the distance that actually travels across the surface. So the line is actually clamped. You'll see as we rotate there, the line is actually clamped to the surface of the canal. So it follows these minute details. If you want just the point-to-point distance, That's given as well. You get a height change in terms of the vertical height difference, and also a slope percent of 62% there. So that can be quite useful for just measuring up areas and getting an understanding of dimensions. You can save that measurement as well, measurement 1, for example, and you'll see that that also appears up here on our saved measurements. We can also measure area. If we use this tool here, we can measure area. We use the left click button to create new points on that area measurement. And to finish the measurement, we right click. So I'm right clicking now. And we're given a total area of 7-ish square meters. The next tool we see in the toolbar here is the asset timeline. Now, the asset timeline comes into play when you have more than one date capture. It allows you to move back and forwards in time without the view changing. So we could view a particular part of the asset, move back and forth in time to make comparisons while maintaining the same view. With this particular model, we only have one capture, so I can't demonstrate that for you for the moment, but it's very straightforward to use. The bullseye toggle, as we spoke about, turns the bullseye on and off on our original image viewing, which you can see here. We can turn the bullseye target on and off. And last of all, we have the full screen button, which simply makes the entire platform full screen for you, take up the whole screen of your computer. Over here, we have a few features that are still to come, an export share feature and some help, and we also have the log out button. That concludes the brief tutorial we've put together on the Hoverscape data analysis platform. Bear in mind that this is just an introductory video to give you a basic overview of how to make your way around the platform. Feel free to be in touch with us and communicate constantly with the parts of the portal that you like and the parts that you would like to provide input on, because we are always adding features and we like to listen to our customers. So feel free to be in touch with those kinds of ideas. Hope you enjoyed the video, and talk to you soon.